This is the video diary of recapping a Quicksilver Triode, and this is the uses the Russian triode, the 6P33P. It's a pretty rare Quicksilver amp. They didn't make too many units of it, only a very few. And let's just take out the extra caps that I'm going to change them for. So let's have a look on the inside. So here, this is the output transformer, and we cannot see the main power transformer because it's under the casing right here, but this is where the leads come out from the transformer, and the transformer feeds onto two big capacitors. Here they are these caps, these huge Nichicons, 500 volt rated, really big ones. There's one which is 1000 microfarads, and the other one is a 330. And the 1000 microfarad, that's the one here. We have a Grace bridge, solid state Grace bridge feeding that 330 microfarad cap, and that's the one that feeds the B plus to the output transformer. And as you see from the output transformer, this is the plate, that's the plate pin, and we see the other that's also feeding that plate pin over there. So this is how we get the high voltage for the output tubes from this capacitor. And it also has a separate supply for the input and the phase splitter, and that one uses I think I will have to check which one is the 1000 microfarad, which one is the 330, but I suspect that this one will be the 1000, but I'm not so sure, so we will find it out after we open it up. So anyway, it has a separate supply, a separate bridge filter, and as you see, both of them have bleeder resistors across them. And here, this is the ground, and that's the hot, and the hot feeds a choke. So here a choke is fed, and then we can trace the choke, the white comes here. So we have a CLC input filter for the phase splitter and driver tubes, and here we have a 47 microfarad 500 volt rated cap, and as you see the side of the marking, so this shows that this is the positive side and that's the negative. So you see the negative and you see the arrows going there, means this is the negative side, so it's going to ground. So Mike uses the chassis as the ground plane, and he basically grounds his parts there. And the positive part, this is the tab where it meets the choke, and here these are the plate resistors for the phase splitter, and then we have going the plate resistor here for the input tube. Oh, sorry, these are not the phase splitters, these are the mu followers after the phase splitter. We have the phase splitter and the input tube here, so they are right here. So what else? Here, this transformer is a separate transformer for the bias supply, and as you see, this feeds these guys here. Let's make some space. This is we do see it here, the red wire, that's the secondary of the output of the fixed bias transformer. So one end goes to ground right here, and the other end feeds the bias supply we have a half wave rectification there, and we have one 50 microfarad 450 volt rated cap. Of course, the supply is much lower than 450 volts, but if you use higher volt rating, then the cap will be much less stressed and radiate much less field around it. So what we will use instead is we will use the same rating capacitor, but at a higher microfarad than the original. So original was 50, I'm going for 270, and that will give us a much quieter fixed bias supply than what we have here, and that will be quite a bit of improvement in the sound quality that we will get. And that through a resistor feeds the second capacitor of the fixed bias supply, so it is a CRC filter, and this one is 160 microfarads at 250 volts. So what I'm going to use here, 250 volts rated, but 330 microfarads. So I'm doubling the capacitance here as well. So it means that our bias supply will be much improved. And usually if you have a fixed bias amplifier, if you want to improve the sound, improve the capacitances in the bias supply, and that will give you much better low-level detail and definition. So now here these are the pots where the bias supply is feeding, and these will allow you to change the bias supply voltage that is being fed for your power tubes, and they will allow you to just set the bias and regulate the current. And you see, that's the red wire that's running from one end to the other end. So this is where they have received the bias supply from the source, from the bias source, supply source. They are both connected here, and the other end, you see, that is connected here as well, and it goes to ground. So the top side here of the pots, that's the ground connection of the bias, and here this is the negative connection of the bias. So when you look at the power supply high voltage, the B plus voltages, there the negative goes to the ground and the positive is on the positive side. The bias supply here, the positive part is the one that's going to face the ground, because the bias supply brings the voltage below your ground level. So that's why the upper end of your bias source will be referenced to the ground plane, and its electron source will be quite a bit below the ground. That's why we need a separate supply from it, and we cannot get it from the main B plus voltages. So there we go. And for this one, this is the second capacitor for the CRC filter. I'm going to change it to the same 500 volt rated, but double the capacitance, 100 microfarad. And this is a Nippon Canicon capacitor. They are pretty good, better than the cheap US brands. By the way, these are quite basic capacitors, and it will be quite an upgrade to use some better quality parts. But that tells you something about Mike's designs, that even with the basic capacitors he achieves really solid sound. And maybe I have not mentioned yet, but these amplifiers are really special, and those who know about them, it's really highly desirable, and you do not see these come up on the market, because when someone has a pair of them, they are keepers for life. So what else? What did I want to say? Of course, the coupling capacitors. These are SEC, so it means that Southern Electric capacitors. These are a California company who makes film caps. These are film caps, and these used to be really high quality and very good capacitors at the time when this amplifier was made. And but since then, the coupling capacitor technology has eclipsed this by a very large margin. So I'm going to put obligato capacitors here. They will have the same voltage rating, 600 volts rating, and I will use 0.22 microfarad caps here and here. So these are feeding the power tubes, and here the mu follower that's driving the power tubes is fed by these pairs, and these are 0.7 microfarad 400 volt rated Southern Electric capacitors. And instead of these, I will also use 0.22 microfarad 600 volt rated obligatos. So I will go with the capacitance slightly lower because of the higher voltage rating. They will be bigger in size, and I want to be able to squeeze them inside, and that extra voltage rating will give it longer life and just better sound and overall. So what else do we have here? Basically, so this is how it will look like. So here at this point we'll have the small Rubicon, here we'll have the big Rubicon. These two big Nichicons will go in there, and here that one, the Nippon Kamicon, will go in there. So overall we will have a better filtering for the bias supply, and also we'll have a bigger reservoir to feed our input tube and phase splitter and mu follower. In general, this amplifier can drive anything, so it's really powerful, really potent, and it's absolutely gorgeous. You see its shine is just perfect. It's a beautiful amp, and if you have speakers that are really seem to be bass shy, even with a good push-pull amplifier, these will make them come to life with a very powerful sound. So if power is something that you are lacking and you want that coming from your tube amp, these amps are going to give it to you. And that's because these triodes have tremendous current output, and that's why they are capable to put out loads of currents. But curiously, even those speakers which are not current hungry, for example my Fostex void pipe, which is super efficient, 95 dB efficient, but in my room here in the living room they just sound really bass shy because of the room acoustics, but not with the Quicksilvers. With them they come like really authority heavy. I mean not authority heavy, but they will have authority with their sound, like a nice gravitas added to it, and you will not be missing any bass with that. So if you want powerful but controlled and clean, high quality, very high quality bass, then these amplifiers really do that.